confidence. In fact, I'll show you one right now. Just stand up. This is a real easy biohack. And it takes about 2 minutes, and it'll increase your chance of being persuasive by about 16 to 20%. Just stand with your back straight, straighten up a little bit, and place your hands in what we call Wonder Woman position. Men, you can do this too, it works equally well. Now, as you're doing this, something very interesting is happening inside your body. We have two chemicals that are associated highly with leadership. One is testosterone, the other is cortisol. Basically, we want testosterone to be higher because it's associated with dynamism. Cortisol to be lower because it's associated with stress. When our dynamism is high, we're more likely to be persuasive. When our cortisol is low, we're more likely to be calm. Ever met a leader who had high testosterone and high cortisol as well? They were dynamic, but they were also angry and easy to aggravate. On the other hand, someone who was really calm, laid back, but they never got off their back. That's someone who has low cortisol and also low testosterone. So we can move both in the right direction simply by doing this pose. It's a pose of confidence, and what happens within 2 minutes is the testosterone goes up 20%, the cortisol goes down 16%. They have measured this.
For women and men?
Women and men. Women and men both have testosterone, and it impacts both positively. So this is something we got him to do. Just that, immediately before going into the meeting. There's other things you can do as well, but this is one of them. I reckon you've been doing this for around about 2 minutes now, so you can sit down. And by the way, as you adjust to the climate change which is going on in this room as we speak, if you feel the need to shed a few layers, then, you know, we're all amongst friends. You can take off your shoes, check if they're aging gracefully. Just do whatever you need to do to feel comfortable. I certainly will, but I won't be going any further than this. So we got him really clear on how to prepare in terms of his energy, in terms of his state. That was the second thing. So number one was strategically and tactically. Number two was his energy. The third thing is we got him really clear on what he wanted to ask for. Really clear on what he wanted to ask for. And we actually got him to practice that, because often you leave it to the other person to hope that if we've done a great job of persuading them, that it'll just naturally occur to them what we want them to do. Ever done that? Oh, look, if I've done a great presentation, it'll just naturally occur to them to ask for my business or to suggest that they sponsor my initiative or whatever it may be, or give me budget for this new plan. It doesn't. People are busy. They need direction. And this is the other key point. What we're fundamentally talking about here is human behavior change. And as a leader, your role is to change human behaviors. And there are two qualities which are seemingly paradoxical that are vitally important. Your role when it comes to being a change maker, a sustainability manager, an advocate for change anywhere in the world, or an entrepreneur, is to inspire and direct human behavior. That's it. Inspire and direct human behavior. Now again, we meet a lot of people who are really good at directing people, right? Problem is they haven't inspired them first. You might have had a project manager like that at some point in time. You might have been that person at some point in time. And then we have the other sort of person, someone who's very inspiring, but we've got no idea what to do with that inspirational energy. You know, they walk into a room and they create a buzz and a hum, and it's like, oh, that was amazing. What do I do now? So we don't want to be at either extreme. We want to combine these two qualities together, because only when we inspire and then provide direction does change occur. So inspire and direct human behavior. So we got him really clear on what direction he wanted to give to the chief executive. We got him really clear on what he wanted to ask for specifically. And we got him practicing that because we knew, particularly when he had a history of not being clear, of not being confident with high status people, quote unquote, there was a high risk that when it came to the ask, he'd wimp out. So what do? We prepared it. We practiced it first on me. He practiced it a few times, and the first couple of times he did it, he stuttered, he stammered. By the third time, he got it out okay, but he didn't maintain eye contact. He looked down at the crucial moment. What does that do?
No trust.
Yeah. Reduces the chance that you'll get a yes by anywhere upwards of 50%. Simply by not maintaining eye contact. He practiced it the fourth time and he nailed it. Yeah. Most of us are really good at practicing on other people. in a live environment, on our stakeholders, on our customers. We practice on the people we want to influence. Now, I work with a lot of people who create some amazing world-changing software. And I say to them, imagine if you didn't test your software. If you said, yeah, we're pretty happy with the software, we're just going to release it to the customer and they can test it for us. What would happen to that company?
Microsoft.
Yeah.
Do really well.
Even they test, right? You might not know it, but even they have a whole army of testers, right? And they still have bugs. Just imagine if they had none. I mean, that company would go out of business, right? If that was its operating principle. It didn't test code before it released it. And yet we do this with our messages all the time. That's equally crazy. We don't lose business as a direct result, but we lose business by stealth. We lose credibility by stealth. And we entrench our image as a person who doesn't quite have the confidence to convey ideas by stealth as well. So practice before you walk into that room. Preparation matters. Our second idea is bold moves, taking bold moves. In order to do anything of note, we need to be prepared to take bold action at some point. So bold words are not enough. I'll give you an example of how a 7-minute conversation was more valuable than a 3-year academic qualification. In fact, it goes further to say it counteracted 3 years of academic underperformance. So at one of my companies, we were recruiting people to come on and help us to program world-changing software. And back in those days, I really didn't have a clue about how to recruit people. So we got about 40 different CVs, and so we naturally separated them into a pile based on how the graduates had performed based on their grades in computer science and those other sciencey sounding subjects. So we had our A pile here, we had our B pile here, and we had our everyone else pile here. And so we got our 8 people that we thought, yep, we'll select the people to interview from here. And just before we're about to conduct the interviews, the phone rings. I pick it up. Hey, it's Richard here. I said, hi, Richard. Do I know you? He said, yeah, I sent in my CV to you. I said, Richard, I don't remember it. I haven't seen it. I had the past before. I said, Richard, no, I don't remember. Hang on, let me check this part. Richard. Hang on, Richard. Oh, you. And he said, oh yeah, look, I know that my grades were not that great. But look, that was just because I couldn't thrive in an academic environment. I know that once I'm inside a company, I could do completely differently. And I said, well, that's a great pitch, but I'm not so sure. How do I know that's the truth? We had a conversation and we ended up agreeing that we'd set him a programming task. We gave him a programming task. He had a couple of weeks to do it. He handed it back in and we looked at it and it was pretty good. He passed the first hurdle. Step 2, we decided, okay, let's give you an aptitude test. Let's see if you actually have some smarts, the basic wherewithal of programming. He aced it. Okay, you're smart, you did well at the programming test. We brought him in, we interviewed him, we saw if he was a great cultural fit. He was a great cultural fit for us. Passed the third barrier. Number 4, the scariest of all. He had to sit with Matt Kearse. Now Matt Kearse had come as top in scholarship calculus. He had won the New Zealand Programming Championship. He had munted up his fingers completely by doing too much gaming in the early 90s and 80s. He spoke to his computer using Dragon Naturally Speaking. He was like Stephen Hawking. He was incredible. And he had to sit next to Matt and do a 1-hour programming test that Matt set him. And at the end of the hour, we looked at Matt and we recruited him. Richard was working at McDonald's. And today he's a team leader within that company, which has changed the way that 100,000 molecular biologists do research. One 7-minute conversation changed his destiny and was more significant than 3 years of academic education. So when you want to change the world, or your world, or a corner of it. This is not for sissies. This requires bold moves. This requires doing things that other people might not be doing. If someone says the process is to hand in CVs, it means picking up that phone. The RFP says you must not contact the person who's on the panel, you must contact the person who's on that panel with the right frame. In fact, to give another illustration of that, I can tell a story about you, Jerome. This is important. This shows how a sustainability manager can actually create transformation in an organisation well beyond what he may consider his brief to be. To take a much wider view of sustainability. Now, when I first met Jerome, it was in about 2013, I believe, about 3 years ago. And Jerome said, look, Daniel, we're a great company, we're doing some great things, we've also got a problem. Our last 3 pitches in a row, we've lost. We've got some fantastic ideas about how to create innovation, how to create more sustainability, but we're not winning the work, so we can't do that stuff, and so we're having to do other work instead. And I said, well, I think we can solve that problem. And we ended up doing work on a very specific bid, which is part of the Christchurch rebuild. And as a result of that work, it was successful, and it led to a wonderful project, I believe, which is now in operation. I don't know how it's going right now, but what I want to highlight is we did a number of things. But one thing was really key. And that was this key time. And I came into the room and I said, okay, who knows someone who's on the panel? 2 people raised their hands. I said, right, who's spoken to them? No one raised their hands. I said, okay, before we do anything else, down tools. We're going to work out what we're going to ask that person, and we're going to work out how we're going to ask them so they feel comfortable to give us the answer. And we did just that. And what we did is we didn't just say, can you give us some inside goss? What we said was, these are the things that we can, and I'll tell you exactly how we said it. We framed it. We said, look, we're about to give a pitch. We want to make sure that that pitch is as succinct and helps you make your decision as best as it possibly can. And there's just a couple of questions we've got to increase the likelihood of that happening. Is that okay? Yeah, of course it's okay. What is it? Well, these are the 3 things from the RFP that we believe you want to hear about. Is that correct? And he basically said, yeah, but not in that order. We'd put kind of 2 at number 1, and that one at number 3. And there's this other thing as well that you didn't mention. That was actually really important too. If you could speak to that, that would be great. Now, that information was not on the RFP document, number 1. Number 2, that, again, 7-minute conversation. I know, because he showed me the mobile afterwards. It was like 7.5 minutes it took to have it. Fundamentally shaped the way that we responded to that bid. It changed everything. Basically, we would have gone down a rabbit warren of hope that we were on the right track, if we hadn't asked that simple question. So the number 2 thing is, before you even get into the language and the delivery and the preparation, is to be very smart with your tactics and ask yourself, what is a 7-minute conversation I can have with someone such that I will get the information that I need so I know exactly what not to say, exactly what to say, that I have maximum chance of getting my agenda, my idea, my business proposition, my project sponsored by this person in front of me. Change the trajectory of an organization. The third idea that I want to mention, as he pauses dramatically to take a drink of water, is your intention. What is your intention? Now, as an architect, you understand that if you start building a building without asking what's the intention for this building, it's nonsense, it's ludicrous. You have to first work out what are the KPIs for the building. How are we going to measure the success of this by? Well, guess what? When you're building a persuasive message, it's exactly the same. Just because you can't see it, it doesn't mean that it doesn't abide by exactly the same design principles, exactly the same intention-setting principles. And yet, how often do we see people get up to speak without even clarifying, and sometimes it's very obvious, what their intention was? What change did they want to create? And that's a question